Zektar flexed his 4 primary hunting claws, each one capable of slicing through titanium like it was some kind of, softer titanium. The elite Raxilian warrior stood 8 feet tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh light of the twin suns. Behind him, his hunting pack of 12 seasoned predators checked their plasma rifles one final time. Seriously. Vex Cole, his second in command, gestured toward the planetary scanner with obvious disdain. The Galactic Council wants us to capture this? The device displayed a small, pink, remarkably squishy-looking bipedal creature. Look at it, Zektar. No claws, no fangs, no armor plating. It doesn't even have proper scales. Zektar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. The Council classifies these humans as a potential threat level. Can you believe that? A threat. He gestured at the readout showing the creature's pathetic vital statistics. Maximum speed, barely faster than a Raxilian hatchling. Bite force, weaker than a domestic grooming beetle. Muscle density, absolutely laughable. Maybe they're poisonous? Suggested Thakmore, the pack's demolitions expert. Some of the smallest prey species compensate with toxins. Negative, Zektar replied, consulting his bioscanner. No venom glands, no toxic skin secretions, no defensive chemicals whatsoever. These things are literally walking meat bags with delusions of intelligence. The hunting pack moved through the dense vegetation of the human colony world, their advanced stealth generators rendering them invisible to primitive human technology. Through the undergrowth they could see their target, a lone human female, apparently conducting some kind of geological survey. She had short, dark hair and wore simple clothing that offered zero protection against, anything really. Maya Torres, Zektar read from his intelligence briefing. Engineer, age 28, specializes in planetary resource extraction. No military training, no combat experience, no augmentations or genetic modifications. He paused, studying the data. Wait, it says here she once participated in something called mixed martial arts for recreation. How adorable. The human was completely oblivious to their presence, kneeling beside some rocks and making notes on a primitive handheld device. She looked so fragile, so utterly defenseless. Zektar almost felt guilty about what came next. Almost. Stun nets, minimal force, he ordered his pack. The Council wants this specimen alive and relatively undamaged for the arena trials. Try not to break too many of its bones. The capture took exactly 4 seconds. Maya Torres managed one surprised yelp before the energy nets wrapped around her, and she collapsed unconscious to the ground. Her little device clattered harmlessly against a rock. Well, Vex Cole commented, prodding the motionless human with his rifle barrel, that was disappointingly easy. I was hoping for at least some token resistance. Zektar shook his head as they loaded their prize into the transport pod. The Council's intelligence division is getting paranoid in their old age. Classifying this as a potential combat species? Please. This thing probably couldn't hurt a fly. He had no idea how wrong he was about to be. The Crimson Colosseum of Raxilus Prime stretched across 50 acres of polished obsidian, its towering walls carved with the victory chronicles of 10,000 fallen warriors. Spectator galleries rose in concentric circles, packed with beings from across the galaxy who had come to witness what the promotional materials called the most pathetic gladiatorial debut in recorded history. Vokran, the arena master, stood behind reinforced transparisteel in his luxury viewing booth, his 6 eyes scanning the crowd with obvious satisfaction. The rotund Zelkarian had grown wealthy organizing these blood sports, and today promised to be particularly profitable. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted sentient beings. His voice boomed through the arena's sound system. Today we present a first in Colosseum history, a human. The crowd erupted in what could generously be called laughter, though it sounded more like a chorus of dying industrial machinery. Betting terminals throughout the arena lit up with odds that were, frankly, insulting to mathematics itself. Current odds on the human surviving longer than 30 seconds, 8,000 to 1. Volk-Ran announced with barely concealed glee. Odds on the human actually landing a hit on her opponent, so astronomical our computers refused to calculate them. Down in the preparation chambers, Thex Dow the Bone Crusher reviewed his opponent profile with professional interest. The veteran gladiator had survived 412 arena matches, accumulating scars that told stories of victories against creatures that could level city blocks. His current record holder for quickest kill was 6 seconds against a Terran grizzly bear, and he was feeling optimistic about breaking that record today. A human, he mused to his weapons keeper, flexing muscles that could bend steel beams. I've heard they break if you look at them wrong. Should I even bother with weapons, or just flick it with my finger? Meanwhile, in the holding cells, Maya Torres sat slumped against the cold metal wall, looking every bit the defeated prisoner. Her left arm hung at an awkward angle, clearly dislocated from the capture. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead, and her breathing seemed labored. The medical scanners showed elevated stress hormones, rapid heartbeat, and what appeared to be early signs of shock. "Poor thing," commented Zolneth, one of the arena medics. He looked at it shaking. "It's probably never seen violence before." Most humans live their entire lives without experiencing real combat. The crowd's excitement reached fever pitch as the arena gates began to open. Vendors moved through the stands selling what they called human-sized body bags as novelty items. The betting pools had officially stopped accepting wagers after the humans' odds became too ridiculous to process. "This is almost cruel," Volk-Ran muttered privately to his assistant. "Oh, that creature looks half dead already." The audience expects at least some entertainment value. But the show must go on, and the arena master had never been one to disappoint his paying customers. He raised his ceremonial staff, and the battle horns sounded across the Colosseum. Let the massacre begin. The arena floor trembled as Krell Moth emerged from the opposing gate, his massive form casting a shadow that could eclipse small moons. The Vorthak Predator stood 12 feet tall, his hide covered in natural armor plates that had deflected plasma fire in 3 different Star Wars. His primary weapon was himself, claws that could shred battle tanks, fangs that could pierce ship hulls, and a tail that ended in a bone club capable of pulverizing concrete. Behold! Volk-Ran's voice echoed through the Colosseum. Krell Moth the Devourer, winner of 67 consecutive matches, slayer of the dreaded Kraken of Proxima 7. The crowd roared its approval as the Predator stalked toward the center of the arena, his movements fluid and confident. He had fought everything from cybernetic war machines to acid-spitting serpents, and none had lasted longer than 2 minutes. On the opposite side, Maya Torres stumbled forward, still clutching her injured arm. Her steps were unsteady, her breathing shallow. The arena's medical scanners showed her adrenaline levels spiking wildly, but the alien medics interpreted this as pure terror rather than anything combat-related. "Oh, for the love of Thex," Dow muttered from his holding cell, watching the monitors. "This is just sad. She can barely walk straight. Krell Moth's going to feel guilty about this." The battle began with all the ceremony of a formal execution. Krell Moth circled his prey slowly, savoring the moment. He had learned to appreciate the artistry of a good hunt, and this pathetic creature deserved at least a few seconds of dramatic build-up before the inevitable. Maya backed away, her eyes wide with apparent terror. When Krell Moth lunged forward with his first strike, she barely managed to dodge, stumbling and nearly falling. The Predator's claws whistled through the air where her head had been moments before. "Ooh, close one," Volk-Ran commentated with theatrical enthusiasm, "but our human competitor seems to be operating on pure survival instinct now." The second strike connected. Krell Moth's massive fist caught Maya in the ribs, sending her flying 15 feet across the arena floor. She landed hard, rolled twice, and lay motionless. The crowd fell silent, assuming the fight was over before it had truly begun. Well, that was anticlimactic, someone in the audience called out. Medical scanners showed Maya's vital signs dropping rapidly. Her breathing became even more labored, and blood pooled beneath her still form. Krell Moth approached cautiously, his predatory instincts telling him to confirm the kill, but even he seemed disappointed by the brevity of the contest. Is it dead?" asked Zielneth, the arena medic, studying her readouts with confusion. "The biosigns are all over the place. Heart rate spiking, then dropping, then spiking again. I've never seen anything like it." Vokran held up his hand, signaling for a pause in the combat. "Medical assessment required. We need to determine if our human competitor is still viable." What the aliens didn't understand, couldn't possibly understand, was that Maya Torres was very much alive. In fact, she was thinking with crystal-clear precision. Years of mixed martial arts training had taught her how to take a hit, how to fall properly, how to make damage look worse than it actually was. The dislocated shoulder? She'd popped it back into place during that dramatic tumble. The labored breathing? Controlled hyperventilation to flood her system with oxygen. Most importantly, she was learning. That first dodge hadn't been panic, it had been measurement. She now knew exactly how fast Krell Moth could strike, how he telegraphed his attacks, how his massive size made him commit fully to each movement. "The human appears to be experiencing some kind of biological malfunction," Thexdal observed, leaning closer to his monitor. "Look at those readings. Either it's dying or—" Krell Moth leaned down to examine his motionless opponent, his massive head just inches from Maya's face. The predator's jaw opened slightly, revealing rows of teeth that could bite through steel plating. He was preparing to deliver the ceremonial killing bite when Maya's eyes snapped open. "Or it's been playing dead," she whispered, just loud enough for the audio pickups to catch. Her right fist drove upward with every ounce of strength she possessed, connecting with the underside of Krell Moth's jaw with a sound like a thunderclap. The predator's head snapped back, and there was a distinct crack as his mandible fractured. The entire Colosseum fell silent. Krell Moth staggered backward, his claws clutching his broken jaw, a look of absolute bewilderment in his 6 eyes. Maya rolled to her feet, her injuries forgotten, and fixed the stunned predator with a glare that could have melted battle armor. "Thanks for wasting my time, big guy," she said, cracking her knuckles. "Now I'm really annoyed." The crowd exploded into chaos. The arena erupted into complete pandemonium. Spectators who had been casually munching on crystallized insect larvae suddenly found themselves on their feet, screaming in languages that the universal translators couldn't process fast enough. Betting terminals sparked and smoked as their processors overloaded trying to recalculate odds that had just shifted from impossible to what the hell is happening. Vokran's 6 eyes bulged as he watched Krell Moth stumble around the arena floor, still clutching his shattered jaw. "Ladies and gentlemen." He stammered into his microphone, this is unprecedented." "Sir," his assistant whispered urgently, "the crowd is demanding explanations. Half of them think the fight was rigged, and the other half are claiming the human is some kind of cybernetic assassin." Down in the preparation chambers, Thexdal stared at his monitor in complete silence. In 412 matches, he had never seen anything like this. The human had gone from apparently comatose to combat-ready in less than 3 seconds. It defied every biological law he knew. "Release the backup fighters." Vokran shouted over the chaos. "All of them. Now." The arena's emergency protocols activated, and 5 additional gates opened simultaneously. Out poured a nightmare collection of the galaxy's most dangerous predators: ZX-Lor the Acid Spitter, Venth Akake the Cyber-Enhanced, Gruulthon the Living Battering Ram, E6NA the Shadow Walker, and Kethmore the Bone Collector. Each one was a champion in their own right, each one had kill counts in the hundreds. Maya Torres stood in the center of the arena, completely surrounded, and did something that broke every remaining alien brain in the Colosseum. She smiled. "Oh, come on," she muttered, stretching her neck from side to side. "Now you're just showing off." ZX-Lor attacked first, spraying a stream of corrosive acid that could dissolve through 3 inches of reinforced steel. Maya dove behind a decorative pillar, which immediately began hissing and bubbling as the acid ate through it. "Fascinating. Dr. Quell Nix, the arena's chief xenobiologist, spoke rapidly into his recording device. The human demonstrates immediate tactical adaptation. Notice how it identified available cover in less than 0.7 seconds. Venth AK flanked left, his cybernetic implants whirring as targeting systems locked onto Maya's position. His plasma cannon charged with a sound like reality tearing. Maya grabbed a chunk of the dissolving pillar and hurled it at the cyborg's optical sensors just as he fired. The plasma bolt went wide, scorching the arena wall, while Venth AK staggered backward, temporarily blinded. Impossible. Dal breathed, watching the tactical display. She's using environmental hazards as weapons. That requires spatial awareness, predictive modeling, and reflexes that our scanners said she didn't possess. Ulthon charged like a living meteor, his armored hide gleaming. Maya waited until the last possible second, then dropped flat and rolled. The living battering ram crashed into the arena wall with enough force to register on seismic sensors 3 levels down. As he tried to extract himself from the crater he'd created, Maya grabbed his tail and used his own momentum to swing him around in a wide arc. By the 7 moons of Raxilus, Volkran whispered, "She's using a 1,200-pound predator as a flail." The crowd was beyond comprehension now. Some species were trying to process what they were seeing through their own biological frameworks and failing spectacularly. The Zelkarians were convinced they were witnessing some kind of elaborate illusion. The Korthnani delegation was frantically consulting their religious texts, certain that this was a prophesied apocalypse. Dr. Quell Nix. Volkran's voice cracked over the communication system. "What is happening to that human? Our medical scanners are showing impossible readings." "The human appears to be experiencing what their species calls an adrenaline response," Dr. Quell Nix replied, his voice filled with scientific fascination. "Their primitive adrenal glands are flooding their system with combat stimulants. It's like they carry their own performance-enhancing drugs." Maya had discovered that Sixnay's shadow walking ability had one major weakness: she still cast a reflection on the polished arena floor. When the assassin materialized behind her, Maya was already spinning with a backhand that caught the shadow walker completely off guard. 6NA hit the ground hard, her stealth generators sparking and failing. Furthermore, Dr. Quell Nix continued, warming to his subject, their psychological profile suggests they become more dangerous when injured or threatened. It's completely contrary to every survival instinct in the galaxy. Keth Moore, the bone collector, tried to use his size advantage, grabbing Maya in a crushing bear hug that should have liquefied her internal organs. Instead, Maya drove her elbow backward into his solar plexus, then twisted and bit down on his wrist with enough force to penetrate his thick hide. "She's using her teeth as weapons," someone in the crowd screamed. "What kind of species fights with their teeth?" "A desperate one," Dal murmured, but his tone was starting to change from dismissive to respectful. "Or maybe a really angry one." The arena floor was now littered with groaning, defeated champions. Maya stood in the center, breathing heavily but still very much functional. Her clothes were torn, she was bleeding from a dozen minor cuts, and her hair was completely disheveled. She looked absolutely terrifying. "Ladies and gentlemen," Volkran announced, his voice barely above a whisper, "I believe we need to reassess our understanding of, well, everything we thought we knew about humans." In the betting pools, the odds on human survival had shifted so dramatically that 3 different gambling syndicates had declared bankruptcy. The Colosseum's insurance company was already on the phone, threatening to cancel their coverage. And Maya Torres was just getting started. Emergency sirens wailed throughout the Colosseum as Volkran's staff scrambled to access every database in the known galaxy. The Arena Master's luxury booth had been transformed into a makeshift command center, with technicians frantically pulling up files on human biology, psychology, and combat capabilities. "Sir." His chief intelligence officer, Nix Tal, burst through the door clutching a datapad. "We've been looking at the wrong files. This Maya Torres, she's not just some civilian engineer." Volkran snatched the pad with trembling hands. "What do you mean wrong files?" The human military keeps dual-use personnel records. She's listed as a geological engineer, yes, but look at this. Nix Tao highlighted a section of the file. Former Marine Corps, specialized in hostile environment operations. 8 years of active duty, including deployments to 12 different war zones. Dr. Quell Nix leaned over their shoulders, his scientific mind racing. That explains the tactical awareness, but not the physical capabilities. Our bioscanners clearly showed she was operating at the limits of human physiology. That's just it. Nix Tao pulled up another screen. We've been measuring human limits wrong this entire time. Look at these combat reports. Humans regularly exceed their baseline capabilities by 300% when sufficiently motivated. Down in the arena, Maya had found a moment to catch her breath. The 6 defeated champions were still groaning on the floor around her, creating a scene that would have been considered impossible just minutes earlier. She wiped blood from her lip and assessed her injuries with the cold professionalism of someone who had done this before. The human's biological readings are still climbing, Dr. Quell Nix reported, his voice filled with scientific wonder. Heart rate, oxygen consumption, muscle efficiency, it's like their bodies have multiple operational modes. Multiple modes? Vokran's voice cracked. What do you mean, multiple modes? Think of it like this, Dr. Quell Nix explained, gesturing wildly at his readings. We scan a human at rest, and we assume that's their maximum capability. But apparently, their species has evolved what they call fight-or-flight responses. When threatened, their bodies essentially overclock themselves. Thakes Dal, who had been listening to the emergency broadcast from his holding cell, finally spoke up. You're telling me that every human is basically a walking biological weapon that gets stronger when you hurt it? Worse, Nix Tao replied, consulting another file. According to these military reports, humans have something called pain tolerance. They can continue fighting with injuries that would incapacitate most other species. There's a documented case here of a human continuing combat operations for 6 hours with a punctured lung. The arena's medical staff had been monitoring Maya's condition throughout the fight, and their readings were causing multiple system failures. Dr. Zilneth, the chief medic, was staring at her scanner in complete bewilderment. This is medically impossible, she muttered. The human is showing signs of significant trauma, but her combat effectiveness is actually increasing. Look at these pain response readings, it's like the damage is making her more focused. That's because it is, came a new voice over the communications system. Dr. Kelksnara, the Colosseum's chief psychologist, had been quietly analyzing the situation. I've been reviewing human psychological profiles. This species has what they call spite and stubbornness. When injured or insulted, they don't retreat, they double down. Maya proved this point by picking up a piece of debris from the arena floor and examining it like it was a precision instrument. To the aliens, it looked like a random chunk of broken concrete. To Maya, it was a perfectly weighted projectile with sharp edges. Furthermore, Dr. Kelksnara continued, humans appear to have evolved a psychological response they call getting really ticked off. When this occurs, their pain sensitivity decreases, their tactical thinking becomes more creative, and their willingness to take risks increases exponentially. You're saying, Vokran said slowly, that by capturing this human, bringing her to our arena, and forcing her to fight for her life, we've actually made her more dangerous? Significantly more dangerous, Dr. Kelksnara confirmed. And according to these psychological profiles, the more we threaten her, the more dangerous she becomes. It's like they've weaponized their own survival instincts. The crowd had fallen into an eerie silence, no longer cheering for entertainment but watching with the horrified fascination of beings who had just realized they were observing something far beyond their understanding. The betting pools had given up entirely, their screens simply displaying error messages. Maya looked up at the arena's observation deck, where she could see the alien officials scrambling around in obvious panic. She cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted loud enough for the audio pickups to catch every word. Hey, are we going to keep fighting? Or are you all going to stand around having a science conference? Because I've got a schedule to keep. The wounded animal was getting impatient. The arena gates groaned open one final time, and Zektar himself stepped onto the blood-stained floor. The elite Raxilian warrior had watched his carefully planned capture operation turn into a complete disaster, and his professional pride demanded personal intervention. Enough. His voice boomed across the Colosseum. "I will end this embarrassment myself." The crowd murmured with renewed interest. Zektar was legendary, a warrior who had single-handedly conquered 3 star systems and collected trophies from the galaxy's most dangerous predators. His chitinous armor gleamed with battle honors, and his 4 primary claws had never failed to deliver a killing blow. Maya Torres looked up from where she was using Krell Moth's unconscious body as a makeshift bench, and her expression shifted to something that made several spectators reach for their emergency inhalers. "Oh, you're the idiot who kidnapped me," she said, standing and dusting off her torn clothes. "I was wondering when you'd show up. Your pathetic species ends here." Human Zektar snarled, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. "I will restore the natural order." "Natural order?" Maya laughed, a sound that somehow conveyed both amusement and impending violence. "Buddy, you grabbed a combat engineer during her morning coffee break. There's nothing natural about how angry that makes me." Zektar charged with all the speed and power that had made him the apex predator of his species. His claws extended, his armor plates locked into combat position, and his hunting instinct screamed that this kill would be his greatest trophy. Maya did something that defied every tactical manual in the galaxy. She charged straight back at him. The collision should have been suicide. Instead, Maya dropped into a slide at the last possible second, passing directly between Zektar's legs and using a move she'd learned in basic training called the Nutcracker Special. The elite warrior's triumphant roar turned into a sound that no universal translator could process. "Rule number 1 of fighting humans," Maya said, standing over the writhing alien warrior. "We don't fight fair. We fight to win." Zektar tried to rise, but Maya had already appropriated his ceremonial battle staff. She hefted it experimentally, nodded with satisfaction, and delivered a knockout blow that would be replayed in slow motion for decades. The arena fell silent, except for the sound of Vokran's furious typing as he activated the Colosseum's emergency protocols. "Attention all personnel." His voice echoed through the facility. Effective immediately, humans are reclassified as Code Red combat entities. New arena regulations: no human contestants without written consent from their planetary government, full military escort, and hazard pay for all staff. Dr. Quelnix was already drafting his report for the Galactic Council. Recommendation: immediate revision of human threat assessment. Previous classification of harmless upgraded to approach with extreme caution and possibly heavy artillery. Maya looked around the arena at the groaning pile of defeated champions, then up at the alien officials who were frantically updating their databases. "So," she called out, "can I go home now? I've got a geological survey to finish, and frankly, this whole experience has been really inconvenient." Zektar managed to raise his head long enough to ask the question that would haunt xenobiologists for generations. How are you still alive?" Maya Torres grinned, cracked her knuckles one final time, and delivered the line that would become the unofficial motto of human-alien relations. "We're really, really hard to kill, and we take it personally when you try." The Galactic Council would spend the next 50 years rewriting their first contact protocols. The phrase "never anger a human" became standard diplomatic doctrine, and Maya Torres returned to her geological survey with a story that no one on Earth would ever believe. But in the deepest archives of the Raxilian military, there's still a classified file labeled Human Warning Protocols, and every elite warrior is required to memorize its contents, just in case.